No. I came here at the last minute, really, and I thought I was going to be put, or I thought I was put into the wrong section here, because I have nothing to do with media, at least superficially maybe. And then they added the word education to the whole thing. So now I feel a little bit better in place. Quick background, I've got 15 minutes. I love to talk, so cut me off when I go too far. I'm 74 years young. My life has been full of women. I've had 3 mothers, and they were sisters. First one, the eldest sister, was my biological mother. She died too young. My second mother, my stepmother, was her youngest sister, and the youngest sister became my foster mother. She is still alive of the 3. You can imagine how old she is. She's in her mid-90s. Anyhow, that's, again, cut me off when I go on too long. But I've been involved with women all my life. I've got 6 sisters. I've got 3 granddaughters. Got two daughters. And I've been to a number of female, what I call women's sessions and organizations in my life. I don't know where the attraction came from, but women are part of my life. And I'll come on to the main subject of my talk within 2 minutes. You probably have heard of an organization called the Saurav. Yeah? The Dutch woman, maybe, yeah? You've heard of them? Well, I'm part of them. And I'll come on to that again too. Then you've got the Brahma Kumaris for the Indian, no, nobody knows? Huge female organization. Brahma Kumaris originates from India, from Mount Abu, the holy area in India. And they've got 20,000, 22,000 women who are nuns, who again are involved with charitable and humanitarian activities. 10 years ago, on a visit to India, and this is where the education part comes in, I visited a place called Bodh Gaya. Now, anybody know what Bodh Gaya is or where it is? Do we have any Buddhists here? Obviously not. I'm a Buddhist, and I was on the path of Buddhism starting about 15 years ago. And then with a friend, I got into Bodh Gaya, which is in between Calcutta and New Delhi, just south of the Himalayas, in a state called Bihar. The state of Bihar alone has 120 million inhabitants. And Bodh Gaya is where Buddha found enlightenment, woke up under the Bodhi tree. It is the Mecca equivalent for any Buddhist in the world to go and visit. So I arrive there and I meet an elderly couple, and they were quite extraordinary for Indian purposes, taking in orphans, girls and boys, from the street and give them an education at home. I got to meet these people, and they were running out of money. I said, well, shit, you know, I've got plenty. And I said, what do you need? So I started transferring money to them. They had 16 orphans at that time, and this was 10 years ago. It got out of hand, because right now I have a foundation, an NGO, in Bodh Gaya with 320 students. New school, 15 teachers, and the classes are from nursery through college and beyond, but I'll come on to that also just now. So in the 10 years, you know, obviously things have changed there, and I spend 6 to 9 months of the year in Bodh Gaya, and with all respect, if I'm not there, things get out of control. This is inherent, unfortunately, within the Indian organizations. I've got to teach them also how to organize an organization, and in this case, an NGO. So I spend a lot of time there. And I have gotten involved. You cannot just separate yourself as a Westerner from the Indian samenleving environment there. So I hit upon a few situations which I felt I had to do something about. Caste system in India, there's nothing you can do about. But the thing which really hit me, and that is part of my, call it, involvement in the past with women, is the arranged marriage situation. And I guess you all know what arranged marriage is all about. And of the 320 kids I've got, there are the half of them are girls, age from 4 to 18. Of the original, in 2006 when I started, of the original 16 there were 50%, so there were 8 girls. They came along. We had about, until the age of 14, so this was halfway, we had about 35 girls at that time, and out of the 35, 20 got into an arranged marriage at the age of 14. And I thought, shit, sorry, you know, this is unacceptable. So I got involved. I literally started to get involved. With my Western mind, I thought, this cannot happen. This is bad. Why is it happening? And I started talking with the parents. I started talking with the fellow students, etc., etc. And there were 2 sections. One of them said, don't behave and start acting like a Westerner. You're not, you know, don't get involved with this. Stay away. And the other half said, and these are parents and students, oh yeah, if you can do this and help us, because all the kids, the female students who were at the age of 14 didn't want to get married, obviously. But the pressure from the parents, the whole environment there was so that they could not escape. So what did Frankie boy do? He started interfering and started talking with the parents and the local communities. And I said, if any future girls want to, or the parents want to have their kids, their female students join the school, they're going to have to make a promise in writing, declaration that they would not interfere with the lives and the education of those girls until they finished. Anyhow, it was a battle, but I told them that as long as we are providing with my money an investment in the kids' future until they had finished university. So university basically is finished in India at the age of 22, 23, 24. So it meant not just for the school time, but also for the college time. I said, we have invested money here, and the kids get an education, they get a basis, they can change their lives, they can get a job. And they certainly, if they fall in love and they want to get married, you know, what can I do? But arranged marriages is out. And they all parents ultimately signed this document prior to putting their kids into school, and also whilst their kids were in school, their girls. They realized what it would mean for their future when they were getting old, that their girls would have a job, being able to provide money back to their parents. And secondly, it saved the parents of the girl money because they didn't have to pay dowry, which was the other thing you probably are aware of. So in a way, it all got through. I did have to accept the consequences because I was living and working and traveling with 2 bodyguards for about 2 years. Because you can imagine, I had a natural enemy in that part of the world. Now you can all guess who they were. Can you have anybody of you can make a guess who were the enemies of this kind of a situation? You have the so-called marriage counselors, marriage brokers. Well, man, they saw this Dutchman from Holland, and you know, with his way of doing, said. So, and I got threats. The school got threats. So it was a scary period, and now it's become accepted. So it's part of the system. Now, then Delhi, not Delhi, ultimately Delhi. Then the local government started to get involved. The municipality, the state, all those people said, "What are you doing here, man? Do you really realize the consequences of what this is all about?" I said, "Yes." If you look through the history of the Western world, the same thing happened probably 1,200 years ago, also to a large extent in Europe. And we've gone through the evolution, we are ahead of you. So eventually it's going to happen here too. But even the Dutch embassy, my good friend, the ambassador, you know, wrote a criticizing letter that we should not interfere into local matters like this. But in the end, these girls who are now in college, I mean, it's fantastic to see. And they are happy, and I'm happy too. But the question, and that's something maybe if we have a chance to talk about it later, if you have questions, there's a school again, there is a situation again where Indian people and European people and Western people are saying, you should not have interfered in this situation. And then you've got the other group who's saying, well done, you know, great that you've done it. And it creates a tremendous, well, it creates friction, at least for the time being. So if any of you, at some point, if it's possible or allowable within the time space, you can put your own point forward if you have one on this issue. And this is the reason why I'm standing here in front of you today. I'm glad, and I thank you for the opportunity to do this, and I thank you for your attention. And if you wish to, if you have any money left, we do work with sponsorship, and we sponsor per child. We do it differently. We sponsor per student, and a student costs per student per year cost 25 euros equivalent. We can put a kid through school for 25 euros. Average salary of a teacher in this part of the world, in India, is 150 to 160 equivalent dollars per month. I think my time is already up by at least 10 minutes. Anybody want to follow this? Is it okay like this?
Yeah.
Okay. So sorry, I came totally unprepared. I didn't know what to do.
I'm Céline Seror. I am a French citizen living in the Netherlands for 15 years. And I've started my life in the Netherlands as a global account director. So I was basically a globetrotter, and I was selling the services of a big consultancy company. And at the age of 35, I asked myself if I should continue being a successful businesswoman, making quite some good money, I have to say, but feeling empty and not being able to really put a meaning to this money I was making. So it took me 5 years to redefine exactly what I wanted, and what I wanted was to work for my passion, and my passion is art. My passion is art since I'm very small, since I'm a little girl, and I go to exhibitions, I visited the museums of the world. I'm inspired by artists, by their vision of the world, by the way they can surprise us, by the way they can enlighten us. And that's really what my life is about alternatives to the vision we have of our reality. And then at the age of 40, yeah, I know it's quite of a symbolic age, but I left my I left my job and I became an artist agent. So I decided, because I'm not an artist myself, to give all of my energy and my power to promote and highlight the work of an artist. And that artist I met is from Cameroon. She's an artist photographer. Her name is Angèle Etundi Essamba. And Angèle Etundi Essamba is based in Amsterdam. This is where we met together. And over the past 30 years of her career, Angèle has built one of the biggest collections of black women portraiture that exists today. In terms of contemporary photography from Africa, Angèle is considered as the pioneer of women photographers in Africa. Together we started to work on her exhibitions, on her books, on her catalogs, on her photographies, and I'm very proud to be her agent today, worldwide. But that was not enough, obviously. So together, we decided to extend our happiness to work together to other women artists from Africa and the diaspora. And we built the first artistic platform dedicated to women in art, fashion, and design from Africa. And this platform is called I Am. This is I Am. And I Am is really a tribute to all artists, in fact. It's a tribute to art. But it's also a way for us to give a new image of Africa and a new image of the African art scene through the prism of femininity. An image of empowerment, of self-determination, of self-projection into the future. And that's what the DNA of I Am is about. But that image that we want to build and where we want to communicate can only be a reality when what we do is done with respect and is done with authenticity in the way we showcase, we feature the artist work of the artist we meet, we spend time with, and we highlight in our pages, on our website, and the event we coordinate in Europe and in Africa. But that image we are building on a daily basis can also be true and exist if we share it with the largest audience possible. And that's why, while we are talking about art, about contemporary art, which is a scary expression for a lot of people, we decided to talk about it in very simple words, in a very accessible language. And today, I Am is distributed worldwide, in Europe, in America, and since our second edition about Senegal, I Am is more read in Africa than any other places in the world. And for us, it's a really sign of pride for us, because it means that you can speak to everyone about art, and art is for everyone, and not just for a small circle of connoisseurs. About our choice of highlighting women artists, it was very clear. As I said, we wanted to extend the work of our team, if I can say, Angèle and I together, to other women artists. But it's also because it is a fact that women in art get less visibility in the world in general, and in Africa specifically, even more. So we know that there are, identified disadvantage of being a woman, and women in art even more. But these disadvantages are just an excuse, but there cannot be an intellectual position, if I can put it in a kind of sophisticated way, in the way that, and I want to relate to the topic of this session today, how can art and media shift consciousness towards women? Well, it shifts consciousness towards women when we take the intellectual position of building and constructing a positive image and a constructive image about women, and not only focusing on disadvantages. And that's in the DNA of I Am again, and that's our intellectual position. Our next adventure, if I can say, or project, is about Nigeria, we have done 2 editions, one dedicated to women artists from Senegal, one dedicated to women artists in Cameroon, and now we're going to go for the first time to an English-speaking country. Nigeria is one of the most vibrant contemporary art scene of Africa today. Women in art in Nigeria are strong women artists. They are extremely aware of the challenges that they are facing, but also their art is very much achieved and very much compelling with the reality, not only of their country, but of what we live in the world. So this is why we have chosen Nigeria. We have also chosen that country because it's becoming one of the, if it's not already, but one of the most powerful countries of Africa, and potentially in the next 20, 30 years of the world in terms of demography and in terms of economic power. So all of this to say that I Am is about art, I Am is about women, and it's about a new image of women in art, and we are very proud to have built this project, the 2 of us, and together with our team of contributors who are working across the world to build this quality platform. Voilà, that's what I wanted to share with you today. Yeah.
Support us all, myself, especially on my own journey, but other people as well, to find ways to be more tolerant, to become more mature emotionally, to develop our intelligence so that we actually are working with more of our brain capacity, something I focus on a lot now, and I'll speak on it tomorrow at 9 a.m., the neuroscience of the brain and success for women. And I became very passionate at the time to find ways to bring the message out to more people and to work in ways that were not threatening, because as a psychologist, I'm sure you can relate. You either think something really negative about a psychologist, or maybe you like the idea, but there is some stigma or some trepidation, some nervousness about telling your whole life to a complete stranger and paying money for it. There's something prostituting about it, about the sacred space that you then have to pay for, right? So it can be a very threatening thing, and especially for a lot of people, depending on where they come from, their social background. In South Africa, we have 11 traditional languages that are official on our constitution. I say our, even though I don't live there, because I still feel great passion and love for South Africa. And working as a psychologist, you don't really reach a lot of people who need your services because they can't afford them. And so we have to find interesting ways to work. And so along my way, without really looking for it, came the African djembe drum, which I was exposed to by a man who himself had learned to play the instrument, a white Jewish man who was a South African at the time, and he set up this cafe called the Drum Cafe, and he invited African drum masters from Senegal and Mali. This was 25 years ago. And seeing one of these men play this instrument and become absolutely enlightened and golden before my eyes when they are in the state of what we call soloing is one of the most powerful and enigmatic reflections you can ever see in life. I would imagine if you've had that experience, you might connect with it, maybe a little, maybe a lot, maybe you know what I'm talking about. But something for me when I saw that really connected very deep in my heart. Because from very young, I was a dancer. 17 years, I did all kinds of dancing before I studied psychology. And I knew that the creative expression, the creative path, is a very important path for all of us. To get in touch with our creativity is really the one thing that saves us from really serious problems in the world, when we can actually come into a creative space with others and we can actually generate solutions for very mundane problems. Of course, there are many, many theories and research that echoes this, that proves this. In fact, one thing I like to mention in my talks is a really famous man now called Sir Ken Robinson, who talks about revolutionizing education. And he speaks about this very profound research on divergent thinking. When we are young, as children in nursery schools, we generate 10 possibilities for a stick. We can use that stick to go to the wall and draw on the wall as an imaginary pencil. We can use that stick to make a little line and walk along it from ourselves to our friend, imagining it that it's a bridge. We can use that stick to do 8 more things. As we progress in the educational system, divergent thinking decreases. And in fact, when we reach the end of our schooling, formal education, divergent thinking has reduced down to almost 8% in the young people that are leaving school, meaning that educational systems are actually stifling creativity. This is Sir Ken Robinson's point. And so for me, I was very clear that creativity is really the way to do psychological work that will bring in more people and will actually expose them to their inner life and all these different ways that we have to become unified and to have tolerance amongst us. And what better way to do it than drumming? So I started doing some research, but I found no research. Nobody was writing about drumming at the time, so I started writing myself about the experience of drumming and percussion and what it means to be able to express yourself through sound. And I came into contact with some very profound teachings by a woman called Lane Redmond. She has passed now. She wrote the book When the Drummers Were Women. And the book says that the biggest line of frame drummers existed in Cyprus. And these women were priestesses. They were goddesses in training. They were worshipping the goddess Aphrodite, who is the patron goddess of the island, as far back as what we know now, 500 BC. There are temples all around. I live next to one of them called Amathunda. If you ever want to come and visit, please do. I welcome all funky, cool, creative, wonderful people to Cyprus. We need many more than what we have there. We can be quite a traditional, stuck in the old way nation. And so now my 10 years of living there has exposed me to this incredible tradition of drumming that existed in the hands of women way back when, simultaneously maybe before, than it existed in Africa, because the ancient, most first drum of them all was found in an area close to what is now called Turkey, near Istanbul, a place called Catalyuk. So of course this very powerful frame drum is a symbol now of many, many things. So I want to invite you to get in touch with me, something I teach in some of my workshops, with a simple truth. We're going to put our 2 fingers on the side of our pulse like this, eyes closed, and we're just going to tune into our pulse. Then I'm going to invite you to breathe with me, and we'll see if we can synchronize our pulse with the rest of the room, and we're going to play it out on our hands if we manage, to see if we can synchronize our inner rhythm with our environmental rhythm and our rhythm that flows between all of us. This is a principle called entrainment, and it happens through the brain waves that are connecting with the lungs, the heart, blood in the heart, and the air in the lungs. So 2 fingers on the side of the pulse. Just tune in for a few minutes. Try to breathe normally. Don't control or manipulate the breath. Just naturally. And feel the beating of your heart. See if you can then start to count the gap between them. So you start on the pulse. Mine's going to be faster than yours because I'm up here talking to you, a little nervous, I guess. Right, I've got mine. It's going like this. I want everybody to put their foot on the floor and see if you can tap out yours. I'm going to make mine quiet so that you don't get influenced. Check every now and again. And now we're going to breathe on the count of 4, all together, synchronized breathing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's breathe. And out. Stop the pulsing on the floor and just focus on the breathing. On the count of 3 this time, again we will breathe in and we will breathe out, just allowing ourselves to extend the breath naturally. 1, 2, 3. One, 2, 3. One more time. 1, 2, 3. You can stay there focused for a minute with your inner world. Just feel the appreciation you have for yourself for bringing yourself here to this wonderful conference to meet these incredible people that are all merging together. And really, we are all present in this rhythm of life. I'm going to read to you something Lane Redman wrote, which explains my work in general, some of my work, and the work of all of us in the world, really, to try to create our lives to the pulse of our own rhythm on our own drum, but to also come into this beautiful merger and rhythmic flow with all other beings. The primordial first sound heard is in the womb. All existence arises out of vibration and rhythm, as rhythm is the primary structuring force of life on this planet. Sound is power, and the first sound we hear is the pulse of our mother's blood. No sound has a more powerful effect on our consciousness. We vibrate. We vibrate to this primordial pulse, even before we have ears to hear. This is the reason that women in the ancient world were so identified with the frame drum. The symbols on the drums, like the lotus, represent creation, birth, or the womb. They were often painted on the drum. And also the reason why the drums were painted red, the color of blood, the color of life. The frame drum held in the hands of the goddess or her priestess represented her power to create the universe with one stroke on her drum, with one beat of her primordial heart. Everything vibrates into existence. Deep listening to this sound is a powerful and effective means of nurturing and returning to the unconditioned primordial state of our original consciousness. This sound has been used therapeutically as a background for massage, sleep, hypnotic induction, counseling, or even practicing yoga. It is the reason that the frame drum was at the core of the religious rites of the ancient Mediterranean world. Slowly you can allow yourself to return, coming back to the space, and just honoring together. The real reason that we come together is to honor the feminine principle at conferences like this, to get in touch with the importance of having real equality so that we can have real integration, so that we can actually be full and whole and complete in the world. So a lot of my work these days is using the recent research that's coming out of neuroscience and neuropsychological studies on different compartments in the brain and how we integrate them in various ways. And drumming is one of the ways that we use to do that with people that have very serious problems. So I work with a lot of young children who have the symptoms of anxiety, ADHD, or even autism. But I work with lots of adults who have epilepsy, sleep problems, anxiety disorders, depressions, PTSD, all kinds of traditional things that psychologists get busy with. But really we move past the problem and we look at how can we become more optimum in our way of functioning. I think my time might be up. So I just wanted to finish by saying I really appreciate the fact that you are in the room, because to me it says that you are people that recognize the power of creativity and how learning to express ourselves and being creative in the world is one of the most powerful gifts we have, to be co-creating and to be creative with our lives. Thank you very much for your time.